Raven, guess what time it is?
It's June.
Yeah, middle of the year. You know what that means? We get to freak out.
You freak out all the time. You're crazy.
I mean, freak out about books. Yeah, I know. I'm crazy. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. So, it is mid-year, and I have been seeing a whole bunch of other booktubers doing the mid-year, what do they call it? The mid-year Freakout book tag. And this is one that was started back in 2012, I guess. And I've seen a lot of other booktubers doing it, so I thought I would do it too. So let's get started. So the first one is the best book you've read so far this year. So I have to say that my best book so far this year is What You Are Looking For Is in the Library by Michiko Oyama. This one is a Japanese translation, and basically it follows about 5 people, I think it's 5 people, who are from different times in their lives. There's a girl fresh out of school, there's a guy in a dead-end job, there's a woman who's just had a baby and is struggling with work-life balance, there's an elderly guy who just retired, all these different people. And somehow each of them in their story ends up at this small community library. And when they go to the library, they're looking for a book on a certain topic, like the one guy is looking for a book on this card game, another one's looking for a book on computers and technology, those sorts of things. And they meet the reference librarian, who is a very interesting character, and she basically can tell just by talking to them briefly what they need. And so she'll give them a list of books, and most of them are the ones that they were looking for. And then there's always a book on there that is unusual and has nothing to do with what they requested. But when they take that book out and read it, it leads them to various things in their life that help them move forward a bit from where they're at. And I really, really enjoyed this. I loved the character of the librarian. She was just a really cool person that I would love to meet. I found this book very, very inspirational. It really helped me think about maybe changes that I needed to make in my life, and in particular changes in attitude towards various things. And I just found it a very encouraging book. So that was why that one was my top one. Next one is the best sequel you've read so far. Now, I haven't read very many sequels this year. I've been kind of restarting my reading over the last year and a half, because I'd gone through a real drought for a while. So I've been going through a lot of the books on my shelf, and with the Read It and Unhaul It, like you've seen, and reading ones that I have and deciding what I'm keeping and what I'm not. And then I have been starting a bunch of new series. So I thought I would tell you, instead of what the best sequel is that I've read so far, I'll tell you the best series that I've started so far, because I've only read the first books in them. So one of the best ones that I started so far is Bernard Cornwell's The Last Kingdom series. It's about Uhtred of Bebbanburg. And this is actually a 13-book series that I'm looking forward to continuing, but I've only read the first one, which is called The Last Kingdom. And basically what this series does is it follows a young man named Uhtred, it starts in the 860s, and it's the time of when the Danes were invading England, or what was going to become England, and taking over. And in the first book, Uhtred is only 10 at the beginning, and his father gets killed in the war, and he gets captured, and then he kind of gets adopted by a Danish Viking and his family. And so he grows up learning to fight and basically how to be a Dane, and then he ends up getting involved with King Alfred of Wessex, which is the last kingdom that remains standing against the Danes. And so the first book basically takes him from the time he's 10 until about 20. And then there are, like I say, 13 more books in the series. This was also made into a TV show, which I'd be curious to watch, but I want to read the whole series first. So that's one of them. And then the other series that I started and I really, really loved is this one here. This is the Aaron Falk series by Jane Harper. It's a trilogy. And the first one is The Dry. And it's about it takes place in Australia, and it's about a federal agent named Aaron Falk. And in this one, he ends up returning to the small town that he grew up in because one of his best friend, basically growing up, appears to have murdered his wife and son and then killed himself. And the young man, Luke, his father, tells Aaron, basically kind of blackmails Aaron into coming to the funeral and then looking into things. And there's a lot of history with him in the town, and he ends up, having to try and figure out what actually happened and everything. So but the writing was really, really good, and the way she set the scene was really, really good. I just thoroughly enjoyed this one. So I have the second one now to read, and the third one on order. So I'm looking forward to finishing that series this year. So the next one is a new release you haven't read yet but want to. So for that one, I'm going to say, I'll put it up on the screen here, Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands by Heather Fawcett. That one came out in January. And I am actually right now just halfway through the audiobook of Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by her, which is the first book in the series. And I am absolutely loving it so far. Basically, the main character is a professor at Cambridge. Her name is Emily Wilde, and her specialty is dryadology, and she is writing an encyclopedia of fairies. She ends up going to this far north country over the winter to basically try and finish the last chapter in her encyclopedia. She has a friend slash colleague slash nemesis named Wendell Bumblebee, and he ends up following her there, and the crazy adventure ensues. And I'm only about halfway through, but I can already tell that I'm going to just love it. So I'm looking forward to reading the second one, which came out in January. The next one is my most anticipated release in the second half of the year. And so for that one, I have to go with Somewhere Beyond the Sea by T.J. Klune. And that one is coming out in September. And I'm really looking forward to it because earlier this year I read The House in the Cerulean Sea by him, and it was such a good book. I just absolutely loved it. And so basically that story, it's about this guy named Linus, and he works for this department who's in care of magical youth. And he's basically like a caseworker. And he goes out to investigate one of the houses or orphanages where these magical youth live on this island. And there he meets this guy named Arthur Parnassus, who runs the orphanage and looks after these magical kids who are like, it's kind of like the extreme cases. And so it's a found family story. There's a lot of very sweet elements, a lot of humor, and I really, really enjoyed the first one. So I'm really looking forward to the second one in the series, which is coming out in September. Next up would be my biggest disappointment. So that one was kind of hard because I've had a lot of books that were kind of meh, ones that came off of my shelves and so far this year. And I've had a few that are, I didn't like, but I wasn't really expecting to like. So when I'm thinking about disappointments, I'd have to say that the one that I picked is The Saga of the Bounty by Irvin Anthony. And I'd had that book for years on my shelf. And it's from, I think it was written in like the 40s or 50s. But basically it tells the story of the mutiny on the Bounty from the point of view of the guys who lived it. And it's all just basically a collection of letters and court transcript and, journal entries, that sort of thing. And so I was really looking forward to it because I thought it would be very interesting. And then I discovered as I was reading it that it was incredibly boring. And there wasn't enough extra exposition from Anthony in it to explain, the general timeline of events and what is known to be true and what was thought to be, fabricated stories and all that. It was just basically you were just reading the documents and there was no context around it sometimes, so it was hard to follow. And I had to do a bunch of Googling to, basically kind of find out the timeline on my own. And so I was disappointed in it. My biggest surprise. So the biggest surprise for me so far this year was I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman. And it's a translation from French. And I had come across this book thanks to Emily Fox on BookTube. And she was constantly talking about this book because she loves it so much. And so I thought, and she said, everybody needs to read this book. So I was like, okay, well, I'll order it in at the library. So I did. But it's a kind of post-apocalyptic dystopian type literature, and that's not my jam. My jam tends to be historical and mysteries and thrillers, and I've never really read and enjoyed a dystopian, post-apocalyptic type book before. That one was really, really cool. It was very, very intriguing. Basically, it tells the story of this young girl. She has been she and these other 39 women have been stuck underground in this cage for years. Ever since that's the only thing she can remember, ever since she was little. And at this point, I think she's, a teenager or whatever at the beginning. And so that's all she's known. And the women don't even remember exactly what happened that got them there and why they're there. And there's these guards who are constantly watching them, but they don't say anything to them. They don't interact with them or anything. They just, bring their food and that sort of thing. And one day, all of a sudden, the cage is opened and the guards are gone. And so the women escape and they go out into the outside for the first time, and they have to try and figure out what's going on. Where are they? Are there any other people around? Anything like that. And as the story goes on, it actually goes through the years of them trying to figure out what happened and following this girl. And it's very, very, very interesting. And it doesn't come up wrapped up in a nice conclusion at the end, because it's not that kind of a story, but it fits. The ending totally fits. And I read it in the course of a weekend, and I'll put the link up. I have a vlog where I read it, and I couldn't put it down. And I was really shocked, because that is not my style of book normally. Next up is my favorite new author. So I've been reading a lot of new authors. So I've read like one book by each of them. So I don't know yet who's going to be a new favorite. I know there are some that I want to read more of and purchase more of. So that's what I'll tell you about. And so far this year, my new favorite books that I've read were by T.J. Klune, who wrote The House in the Cerulean Sea, Jane Harper, who wrote The Dry, Bernard Cornwell, who wrote The Last Kingdom, and Janice Hallett. I just finished reading The Mysterious Case of the Alperton Angels by her and really enjoyed that one. So I'm really looking forward to reading more of hers as well. So those are kind of four of the authors that I'm going to definitely try reading more of, and we'll see if one of them becomes an absolute new favorite. Number 8 is the newest fictional crush. So I would have to say my newest fictional crush is Aaron Falk from The Dry by Jane Harper. I just really liked his character. He was a very deep character. There was a lot of emotional baggage attached to him, which I find in books especially, really draws me to the character. But at the same time, he was a good person, and I just really, really kind of fell in love with his character in this book. So I would say he's probably my newest fictional crush. Newest favorite character. So far, I would say that my newest favorite character is Emily Wilde from Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. And like I say, I'm only 50% through the book, but I'm loving it so much. And she's just such an entertaining character. I love her personality. She's very, she's kind of very academic and doesn't have a lot of people skills, and so she gets herself into all kinds of trouble. And it just reminds me of some of those like fun characters from the books that I read back, and I'm rereading again now. Like from Elizabeth Peters and people like that. That's kind of what she reminds me of is one of those fun characters from like the Victorian era mysteries and stuff like that. So I'd say her. Okay, a book that made you cry. For that one, I still have this one out from the library. Sweet Bean Paste by Durian Sukagawa. This book was really good. I think I gave it 4 stars. I think I gave it 4 stars. Basically, it's translated from Japanese again, and it tells the story of a young man named Sentaro, and he has just gotten out of prison, and he is working to pay off his debts in this little shop that makes these treats called dorayaki. It's a Japanese treat. And one day, and it's made out of sweet bean paste and like wrapped in a pancake or something like that. It sounds really interesting. And I want to try it sometime. But anyways, one day this lady shows up, this old lady, and she is disfigured. Her hands are disfigured, and she has one side of her face as well that's disfigured. But she comes and she's asking him for if she'll let him, or if he'll let her work there. And she tells him that she's been making sweet bean paste for 50 years, and she wants to work there. But he basically brushes her off, but she keeps coming back, and she lets him taste her sweet bean paste and everything. And so he ends up hiring her to work there. But she does have some secrets that come out during this course of the book. And there's also a teenage girl who she befriends as well, who's struggling with things, and Sentaro is struggling a lot. But through meeting her and learning about her and her secrets and everything, they end up, basically kind of coming to grips with certain things in their own life. But I did cry at the end of this. I cried really a lot at the end of this one because I'd gotten quite attached, and I really enjoyed the character of the older lady, Toku. There's just something about her character that was really inspirational and, neat. And I think people will enjoy it if they read this. But it did make me cry. I'm not a big one on crying over books, but that one did definitely make me cry. A book that made me happy. Well, I have to say that the one that made me the happiest so far was The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. I just loved the characters in that book so much, and the humor, and just the message that it gave, and watching Linus figure out things and kind of find his family that he needed. And it just, everything about that book was so heartwarming, and it just made me very happy reading it. And then the other one that made me happy that I was going to mention was this one, which was, like I say, my favorite book of the year so far. What You're Looking For is in the Library by Michiko Oyama. And this one just made me so happy because I found so much inspiration in it, and it helped me to, sort some things out in my own life and feel like, okay, I can survive. I might be able to make it. It made me happy that way because it really inspired me. So, number 12, the most beautiful book you've bought. Now, I haven't bought very many books this year. Actually, I've only bought technically one book, and then I've been gifted a couple. So because I am not in a book buying stage right now, so I've been reading a lot of books from the library. So I thought I would change this question around to what's the most beautiful book that I've read this year. And so I narrowed it down to 2 books that I thought the covers were really beautiful. One is Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. That one is just a really beautiful cover and just gives me the cozy vibes and nature vibes, and I just really love that one. And then the other one that I thought was really, really pretty that I read was The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. And that one, I just loved the colors on it. I liked the dragon on it. It was very... It drew my eye right away. Let's put it that way. It drew my eye right away, and I thought it was just a really pretty book. I love the color of the cover. I'm big on... I love bright yellow, and especially, well, you can see from my wall behind me, especially in a library. I just love that color. It's just so bright, and then the dragon was neat too. So those would probably be the 2 that I read that I thought were the most beautiful books. And then the last question is, what books do I really need to read by the end of the year? So my goals for the end of the year, I want to try and read more books in series. And so a couple of the series that I really want to read more of are obviously the Bernard Cornwell, Uhtred of Bevenberg one, the Jane Harper, Aaron Falk series. I have a couple of Viking era trilogies that I want to finish. I reread the first one of them. That's God of Vengeance by Giles Christian. And I want to read the other two in that series. And then there's a series, Viking series by Tim Severin that I have read the first two books of quite a while ago, and I never read the third one. And which is my terrible habit when it comes to trilogies. I read either the first and second one, and then I never read the third one because I'm just afraid of how things are going to end. So I need to get over that. And so I really want to read that series as well this year. I also had a goal for myself that I wanted to read more translated books this year because I hadn't really read many books in translation in the past. And I've been really getting into it more after reading a couple of Japanese translations. I've read a Korean translation and a French translation so far this year. So I've read 4, and I actually have 2 more Korean translations on order at the library that I'm going to be reading right now. But my goal is to read 12 over the course of the year, and I'm at 4 right now. And I'm finding them very interesting. I'm enjoying, reading stuff from other cultures and, the books in translation. So I'm looking forward to seeing what else I can find. I want to try, some different countries and just have some fun with that. And then I wanted to read some more of the authors that I think might end up being some of my favorites. So that's like Janice Hallett, T.J. Klune, Bernard Cornwell, those ones. I want to read some more of those books. And I also want to try some other new authors that I've seen a lot of people talk about online. And that's like people like Kate Morton. I want to read The Lake House by her. I really want to try something by Brandon Sanderson when I try fantasy for the first time. Oh, not for the first time, but I'm going to do some reading of fantasy, which isn't my usual genre. And so I wanted to try him. I wanted to try Sebastian de Castell, some of those authors that I haven't tried before that I've heard good things about. And then I also would like to try some different genres as well. I'm going to be hopefully over the next little while doing some vlogs where I try some various genres. I want to try like dark academia and romance and fantasy and some sci-fi because I've never read very much sci-fi. I want to read a little bit, try a little bit of horror. I'll maybe leave that for October, and some ghost stories and those sorts of things. So because I tend to be more of a historical fiction or mystery thriller sort of person. So one of my goals is to just try a bunch of different genres and see if I can find more genres that I like and kind of expand a little bit. So that's my other goal for the year. So that kind of will determine what I end up reading as I go forward. So yeah, it's middle of June right now. And at the end of June, I'm going to give you guys my top 5 books for the last 3 months again, and some stats on how I'm doing. But my reading has been going really well so far this year. I've read some really good books. I've read some meh books. So we'll see where the rest of the year goes. I hope that I read more good rather than meh as I go on. But reading the meh books is also helping me to clear off my shelves. So that's good because I'm going to be clearing off the books that I don't like or don't want to read and filling my shelves with books that I want to read. And I'm hoping to eventually get to the point here where I can do a nice big book haul and get some of these new authors that I've been reading from the library. I've been making a lot of use of my public library though. And yeah, so that's it for my mid-year Freakout book tag. So I will see you guys soon. Bye. You can stay here. Don't eat me. Why are you eating me? Stop that. Ow. Stop it. Ow. That hurts. Get your claws out of my arm. Ow. Stop it. Stop it. Do you want to be in my video or not, you turd butt? Stop it.